Video on doing an oil and oil filter change on your Kohler generator. This is going to be for the 12RESV model, which I have. The first thing that you're going to want to do, I guess before I get into that, let me mention the parts that you're going to need to assemble. You're going to want 2 quarts of oil, and the manual calls for 5W30 API oil, and you're going to want to use synthetic oil, so track that down. You're going to want an oil filter. You can get the Kohler oil filter, which is a part number 1205001, or I've also found more readily available a Wix oil filter, WIX, and that part number is 51056. So other than 2 quarts of oil and the filter, you will need a drain hose. And the drain hose is something like this. You can see I kind of have this already set up, but over here is where your drain is at. We're going to be opening that up in a little bit here, but you want a drain hose that will fit on this opening here. So it's like a 3/8 inch. You can get it at auto parts stores and hardware stores, and that's going to be going on there, but you'll need that drain hose. You're going to need a pan to catch your oil in. You're going to need a 10mm wrench. You're going to need a roll of paper towels. You're going to need an oil filter wrench that will take your oil filter off. You're going to have to just go to your AutoZone store, maybe with an old filter at some point, and get yourself an oil filter removal. I've got one here. It doesn't really, this is an OEM industrial brand. So I'm not sure if that's going to help you to find one also, but this one I know works. So your oil filter wrench, you're going to need a large Phillips screwdriver, and that is it. So what you're going to want to do to start is you're going to want to warm your generator up. And what you want to do that is you will just come out to your non-running generator, and you're going to press the run button. After a couple seconds, the generator is going to start, and just let that run for a good 15 minutes to warm the oil up so it'll more easily drain. When your generator is done warming up, just come on out here and press the off button. That will shut it off. You're then going to want to go inside your house, and you're going to want to find the circuit breaker that goes out to your generator. It's actually the circuit that's coming out to your battery, that's powering your battery and giving power to the unit to start it and to keep your battery charged. So you want to find that circuit, and you want to shut it, put it to the off position. So then you're ready to start working in your generator. The next step you're going to want to do is get your actually we're going to remove the right side panel. Now you saw that I already have mine off, but there's a Phillips screw that goes in here. Here's one on the other side that you can use for reference. And then on the back side, back here, is a 10mm bolt that goes in that holds it, the other one off. So you'll need to use your screwdriver and your wrench to get that off. And then it will just lift out of there. Just pull straight up and just set it off to the side. And now you're kind of ready to get in here and get started. Your next step is going to be to disconnect your battery. And you're going to want to disconnect your battery so it doesn't accidentally start. Even though you shut your breaker off and you have it in the off position, you don't want to risk it starting while you're doing your service. So you're going to want to take your 10mm wrench again and remove the black cable. You see I've already got mine removed. That's the negative. You always remove that first. And then you remove the positive cable and just set them somewhere where they're not going to touch the battery, just so they're out of the way. Now at this point, there is no way that your generator is going to start while you're doing your oil change. So after disconnecting your battery, the next thing is you're going to want to come over here to this side where you remove the panel, and get a paper towel or a shop rag or whatever, and wipe down really good around your dipstick, just to keep any dirt from falling down inside of there as you remove it and do all your work on it. Likewise, your oil filter, wipe down all inside of here really good and around, just so there's no kind of dirt in the area. It's also a good idea, if I don't forget to mention, it's a good time while you have it open to clean out your generator. Just get yourself a little whisk broom that you can get in here and just sweep all the little crud that kind of accumulates to keep it nice and clean. Get all the cobwebs and spider webs that might be in here. I kind of do that at the end while my oil's draining and so on. But after you kind of wipe all that down to get it nice and clean, you're now ready to drain your oil. So as you see, I have my drain hose on here. And I'm going to bring that down to the oil pan, and I'm just going to open the valve. Right now it's closed. The valves are always in the closed position when they're going opposite way of flow. So I'm just going to turn this counterclockwise, and you should start seeing oil drain out. And because we ran our generator, the oil is nice and warm. It's going to flow out and empty really nicely for you. So there is about 2 quarts of oil in your generator. So you're going to just wait until that is all drained out. And then we're going to remove the oil filter. Now, a real important step for the oil filter, as you remove this in a bit here, oil is going to really fall and flow out from around the seal. So you want to put a lot of paper towels up underneath there, and kind of cup it also a little bit, so that as it flows out of there, you know, it's not going to just flow down and get into place. Just kind of get it way underneath there. You see I've got it way underneath the oil drain pipe, just to really protect the oil from getting everywhere, because it does come out quite a bit and use plenty of rags. I learned that the first time I did an oil change. So I'm just going to kind of talk through the rest of the steps in the process while I'm doing this. I'm not going to stop and start the video into a bunch of different pieces and everything. So I just want to kind of talk you through it and give you all the basics. So again, after the oil is done draining its 2 quarts of oil out, what you'll do then is you'll remove your old oil filter. Just like you do any kind of oil change, just take that out and kind of hold it up so it doesn't spill out, set it aside. And then you'll put your new oil filter on. And always remember to put a very light film of fresh oil on the gasket before you put it on the generator. That's the same for nearly every oil filter change. Just a very light film helps it seal up against there. And I also, when I have this off, I like to wipe down the seal and everything on the inside really good to make sure it's clean, so that when I put the new oil filter on with that light film of oil on it, it makes a really good seal and we're not going to have any leaks. So after you get your oil filter on, you'll then be pretty well drained out. As you see, I still got some coming out here. But when you see that there's no more oil coming out and your oil filter is changed, you can go ahead and turn this back to the closed position, and then you'll be able to remove your drain plug. You'll then be able to remove all your oil soaked paper towels and get that all out of the way. Your oil change is almost done. You've got old oil out. So then what you'll do is you'll put in fresh oil in here. Here's where you fill your oil at. This is where you check your oil. You should probably check it, you know, a couple times a year. I do my oil change once a year. But it's going to take 2 quarts of oil that we talked about earlier. So you'll be able to dump just 2 quarts in, and what you'll then want to do at that point in time, you have your oil change is basically done. You've got your new oil in there, and now we're basically really able to do the process in reverse. So what you can do then is you can go ahead and put your cover back on. Just slide it down in there. You'll see the little grooves that it fits in. on both sides. Then you'll put your screw and your bolt on the back, so you'll have your right cover on. And then you're going to come around, and you're now going to be able to put your hook your battery back up again. And you always want to do, when you're connecting your battery, you always want to connect the negative first. So again, that's your black cable connected to your battery. You know, check for corrosion also. I've never had that on my generator, but if it's corroded in any way, get yourself a wire brush and really clean it off really well, so you've got good contact for the next year coming up before you do your next service. Likewise on your positive cable, make sure that it's nice and clean. Never hurts to wire brush around the terminal just to get a really good contact and to clean inside of there. They make wire brushes that are kind of like a pen. They're circular, and you can put them down inside and clean in there really well also. So I'm going to do that before I connect my battery back up again. And at that point in time, you are ready to go inside and connect your or turn on your breaker that you had shut off earlier. That now gets your generator back into a position where you're able to function. And what I like to do is I like to run the generator a little bit after I have changed the oil in it. I will come out here, and it would be currently in the off position. So I'm going to hit that run button again. I'm going to let it run for 10 minutes to really get that new oil into the system. And then I'm going to go over to my dipstick, and I'm going to check the oil level to make sure that it is at the full mark. You want it all the way full, not over full, not halfway in between, but at the very full level of your kind of your safe zone on your stick. And at that point, you know, so you may need to add a little bit of oil to get yourself up to full. At that time, you're perfect. Then you want to make sure you put it back in auto mode. It's going to be running. So as I was mentioning, you're going to let it run for a good 5 minutes or so, and then you're going to hit the off button. That's going to shut it off, and then you're going to wait for probably another 5 minutes for all the oil to settle down before checking your oil, like I had just mentioned. I probably should have said that earlier. So wait 5 minutes with the generator off, and then check your oil and top it off, as I mentioned. So at that point, your generator is in the off position still. You can, if you want to, you can go through the menu and you can reset your maintenance. That just basically tells it that maintenance has been done, and you don't get any warnings or anything telling you to do your maintenance. So it's probably a good idea to do that. I'm not going to walk through those steps to do that, but if you can find the owner's manual online, you can find out how to do that. But the main thing is, when you're done, you want to hit the auto button, and that gets you back into normal operating mode. Nothing's going to happen. Yeah, I think this light turns green or something, and it says auto in the display. But then it's in a position where it will run when your power goes off. So that is a quick rundown of an oil change. I had not seen one for this model out on YouTube, so I thought I would do that. Track the manual down if you can. This is what the manual looks like. I got a bunch of writing and stuff on there, but you're looking for the operations manual, and this is the model that I have. This is the controller I was showing you, the RDC2 controller. So give a search for that operations manual. Will tell you. Page 62, 63, again, I got a bunch of my notes in here that gives you the instructions for doing the oil change. But that help somebody out and a couple other things. After removing your drain hose and installing your filter, and one other thing about the filter, I always like to add some fresh oil to the filter prior to putting it on. It just kind of helps your system not run dry for a few seconds. So I like to fill it 3/4 of the way full, not all the way up to the threads on your oil filter, but about 3/4, and let it sit for a couple minutes maybe while you're getting things ready. but then get your oil filter put back on. Normally you want to put your oil filter on, twist it all the way on, and then when it makes contact, turn it like another 3/4 of a turn. That's plenty, you don't need to do it more than that. But then leave this side panel off, which I now have connected. Leave it off while you're going to do your test, because you want to check for oil leaks down below. So as you hit your run button and you're running your generator for a good 5 minutes, be looking down here where that oil filter is and where your drain thing is at, and make sure you don't have any leaks before you put this side panel on. One other thing, when you're all done running your generator and you come over and you hit your off button to stop it, you want to wait a little bit and look for any warnings, any mentions of any kind of thing in your display here. And there's a few that are coming up here. I think I had mentioned earlier that you could reset your maintenance, that maintenance has been done through the menu options. So that's what that's telling you, and I'm going to do that. I also had a couple other error messages that were coming up, and it has to do with, one had to do with the date and time. It said date and time was not set, and that's because we disconnected the battery. And there evidently mustn't be a little battery in this thing to keep it running, to keep from losing the settings for that. So I may have to check that out. I may have to remove this and see if there's a battery inside of here, inside of this controller, that might prevent that. So I know I'm gonna have to go in and set my date and time. And it also had given me a message that said not in auto, which is because we hadn't hit the button yet to put it in auto mode. I'm not gonna do that just yet. And then there was another error that came up. It said something like next exercise not set error. So I think what had happened, as I mentioned, when the battery was removed, it lost those settings. So I'm going to kind of work through it here. It does show in the book. I've got the manual here. This is the operation manual I think I had shown you earlier. On page 33, it does show you how to set your time. Zoom out there a little bit so you can kind of pause and walk through it yourself. On the next page, it does show you how to set the exerciser. So there's some information on that, walking you through how to set your exercise. And here's like a menu look of it, just walking you through the buttons. I set mine to run for 20 minutes every other week. I think the manual says every week, but I think that's a little overdue. I have quite a bit of experience in operating and using a generator, and all my other generators I've done an every other week exercise, and I've got generators that have been running for 18, 19 years still, and no problem. So I think the every other week exercise is good. So I'm actually not going to walk through taking the time to set the time and to set the next exercise date, because it just kind of showed it to you in the manual and you can kind of read it for yourself. So just wanted to add that little bit to here. So always make sure that you don't have any error messages before you walk away from your generator, because if you don't have your date and time set, and if you don't have your next exercise and your exercise schedule set, it's not going to run on a regular basis to keep your generator exercised and running the way it should. So always make sure you do that, very important. And then like I said before, make sure you hit that auto button when you have all errors cleared and you're ready for normal operation.